Hello, this is take 2 for us. If you were on the live stream, it was a shit show.
If you were on the live stream, no, you weren't.
No, you weren't. We are back though. So let's try this again. Today is a numerological 37. That also goes down to a 10. So 10 is the energy that we're carrying forward with us in the week. Think 10 of Wands, 10 of Cups, 10 of Pentacles, 10 of Swords. What fire are you pursuing this week? We have a real momentum energy about us. Uranus just went direct, and with that, all planets are direct. All planets are direct until March. Take action, follow through, be aware and present and an active participant in your life. Look at things with honest eyes. Honest eyes are not judgmental eyes. They're not judging eyes. They're not self-critical eyes. Look at yourself with honest eyes. Just turn on the light and see that things are not as black or white as they seem. What moves you forward? What changes? Uranus represents our planet of change. You know, we personally experienced right before the planet went direct, we personally experienced like one more sudden unexpected shift in the game plan moving forward. And that has been to not be so cryptic, we got an outside cat a few months ago. I say got an outside cat as in like, do you ever really have an outside cat? Like they pick you and you never know if they're going to come back, but they definitely do. He died a couple of days ago. So we connected with him in October. So it was just about 3 months that we had with him. So that's pretty fresh. That was a sudden and very unexpected change. And we are moving forward. It feels, you know, I think that death often feels like, what do you mean everything is continuing around me is like business as usual. But I think given the last couple of years, we've really fine-tuned those muscles that allow us to be active participants in grief rather than resisting its embrace, its call for attention. So we spent the last couple of days like really allowing whatever needed to come up, and it feels so much better than, at least I know, like my experiences with death as a kid were they left a lot of processing to be desired, and it's so different and so nourishing to have an experience as an adult where I get to be supported, where I get to be honest about how I'm feeling, and not only like have that received, but also have that met and reflected. So it's a 10 week. We're talking about 37 today. This is our card. This is our card. Spirit warrior, shall we go together, you and I, into the darkness, birthplace of fear and greatness? Ferocity paves this heart's path where fear of death no longer hinders the journey toward love, toward truth, toward home. A Japanese kabuki actor in the garb of a samurai warrior fiercely guards the entrance to the spirit world. He is the protector and guardian of the sacred gateway between the worlds. The column he stands beside holds a human skull, reminding us of our fragility, while the warrior in his full regalia reminds us of our strength. His swords and their scabbards cut through the veils of confusion. The red rose at his feet is passionate in its beauty, while the small pink rose at the base of the column represents the balance between our frail human bodies and our wild, passionate spirit. Spirit warrior is a card of tremendous power. It is a card of will and the right use of the warrior within. The right use of the warrior within. Sometimes we need to use the warrior spirit in our spiritual growth, either as a vehicle to move through difficult places or as a boundary keeper to inappropriate penetration. Right now is a time to call upon your warrior spirit. You are either in a difficult situation that requires power and clarity, or your boundaries need shoring up. Whatever the reason, the warrior within is available to you right now so that you can go into the challenge with the power and clarity you need. Stirring. Destruction of the old is one of the courageous gifts of the warrior spirit. Use your spirit sword to disconnect what no longer serves you. Now's the time for severing all old ties that keep you bound to a dead past. That was a knowing little glance. I did a really powerful cord cutting this week. I did a really powerful cord cutting this week. I am not one to sit around when the signs be signing. And I had a client and friend reach out and tell me about a dream that they had. And I was like, yo, that does not sit right with me, especially considering some of the dreams that I'd had. We checked in with the deck. I tend to be a like, everything's fine type of person. And so like, I'm like cutting the deck and it's like, okay, things are chill. And I was like, I think I might be like rose colored lensing this. And Ryan cut the deck and it was like, hey girl, you need to do this immediately, if not sooner. And I was like, all right. So we got into that. And it, like I said, I've done less than a handful of cord cuttings. I don't believe that cord cuttings are things that you do lightly. I don't believe that cord cuttings are take the place of doing the work. Literally like during the ritual, like after things are going, like I'm sitting there, I'm on Instagram, like updating social media access for the person I'm cord cutting to. I'm updating my phone. I'm updating, like I'm going through the places and spaces that I take up and I'm going to update them. I'm going to cut cord in multiple places with tangible action, because cord cutting without action behind it is just going, okay, universe, do it for me. And like the universe is more of a like, hey, we like reciprocity here. We like when we do things together. So this, in quotes, cutting out what no longer serves you. What was the wording on it? It said on the question, it said, use your spirit sword to disconnect what no longer serves you. Now is the time for severing all old ties that keep you bound to a dead past. I think that's part of seeing things clearly, seeing things as they are, directly, without self-judgment. That's being able to go out, you know, if I was unable to let go of dead past on this plant, like it would not look very good. You know, it would have all kinds of yellowed leaves like sticking off of it. It would have gross stuff. It would not be able to thrive. It would not be able to grow as well, because unfortunately for plants and people, we continue sending energy to what's dead in an attempt to revive it before we say, you know what, let me just cut this off. But as people, we can actively just cut these things off. We can actively, and I don't mean just like, okay, hit a switch and like you make a change, but I mean, you can decide that you're going to meet the friction of what it takes to truly move on from the past. To say, there's The Work by Byron Katie is something that I have really been using for myself this week. Like before I ever get like 10 steps up here, I've been noticing myself all the way back at step 1 being like, is that true? Is that absolutely true? How do you feel when you believe that that's true? How do you behave when you believe that that's true? Right? And being able to understand that like I have more energy available to give to the friction when I'm not facing unnecessary friction in all kinds of other parts of my life, right? Like some friction in life is necessary. I'd venture to say that like you don't get to just like roll on by, unfazed by things. But there were just a lot of energy leaks that we really had to get honest with ourselves about. I would say over the last like couple of weeks, we've spent a lot of time like getting very honest about those energy leaks. And getting honest about your energy leaks is being able to just say, I'm going to see this clearly. Again, I'm going to see it clearly without judgment. I'm going to give it a name so that when it happens, I can recognize it. If you've been doing the Joe Dispenza meditations that I shared in our group chat, then you know that like you've been prompted in those meditations to identify something that you're not going to let pass by you, something that you're not going to let yourself ignore when it happens, because you're in the process of Joe Dispenza and breaking the habit of being yourself refers to it as unmemorizing behavior or unmemorizing an emotional response. You're unmemorizing emotional responses. And in order to do that, you have to have friction available for you. And if you have friction or in order to have friction available for you, capacity for friction, you have to be tending to your nervous system. That has been the number one thing. Y'all know I got a coach. I'm working with Tanya, the functional bodybuilder. And she is someone who I really admire for the way that she shows up in an otherwise very cookie cutter industry. I think the fitness industry can be really like cut and paste and can be very, I'll even go as far as to say, I need that. I'll even go as far as to say fairly negative. And she shows up in a way that says, I can embrace mind, body, spirit. So in the sessions that we've had, we've been focusing on this ability to choose the friction that you're showing up for, to choose for me, to put it in my own words, to choose what I'm giving myself to, pouring myself into, and showing up for on an everyday basis that I don't necessarily need to be. And it's just because I'm doing it on autopilot. I'm just used to doing it this way. So I'm always doing it this way. And we're in the process of really shifting that and learning to say, like, this is how I like to live. Yeah. So I'm choosing to live that way. This is how I like to spend my time. So I'm spending my time this way. And that doesn't mean that every single moment of every single day needs to be packed to the brim with entertainment or novelty or anything like that. In fact, it's actually pretty boring to do the things that you like to do all the time. But the reason for that is because you're present in it. You're not giving your attention and energy away to that novelty. And then you can give that focused attention to something for a significant period of time. And then you can go on, for us, it's running our business. And then you can go on doing things out. The number one goal we had for our business was to live the life outside the business. So then we get to leave doing business stuff and go on to the living parts of that. So being able to address that friction is really where I'm at, and being able to see and name these things clearly. I pulled a rune before the call. I asked if there was anything that needed to be shared that it come out. So we have, how do we say this? Daggers, I guess. Daggers, here we go. Do I need to like influencer put my hand behind this? Without it. Daggers is the light of day, perceived at the moments of sunrise and sunset, dawn and twilight. It is the rune of total awakening. It represents the ritual fire of the hearth and the mystic light perceived by the Vitki in magical operations. Daggers is the synthesis of the powers of day and night through the concepts of dawn and twilight. This is expressed by the heavenly phenomena of the morning and evening stars as symbols of the divine twins. Oh, my ears are ringing like crazy. This is the rune of polarity, the Odinic paradox, which is the central mystery of the Odinic cult. It is the embodied paradoxical nature of the god Odin himself, and is best explained in terms of the mystical moment. This is the moment that is sought out and that is found in the vortex of polarized concepts. These concepts are syncretized through a secret alchemy in which two extremes become one. Dagas is that time, place in which darkness and light, pleasure and pain, life and death, body and soul, matter and energy are synthesized into a common concept that goes beyond their perceived opposition. In Dagas, language fails. In other words, opposites are not in opposition unless you choose for them to be. And that is the ultimate Odinic paradox. And in order to know, feel, experience your way through, you must embrace that there is infinite abundance between the extremes. I talked about this with a client earlier this week. We talked about, she's been sharing about a particularly challenging inner voice that has a lot of rules around just general things that she can do, but specifically around food. And we talked about food and movement. And so I want to specifically talk about food because I think that's the easiest way to understand that. So let's say you have rules that say I can only have this or this, right? So I can only have food that is air quotes clean, healthy, organic. I've spent as much time as humanly possible preparing it. I've had my hands in as much time as possible, like doing it. And that's a requirement, not a preference, a requirement in order for me to eat this food. Or I go to the other extreme and I'm like, fuck it, who cares? I'm in the, the drive-through and it's whatever, right? So you've got like two seemingly oppositional extremes here. But when you open up that those two perhaps aren't in opposition to one another, and in fact, probably inform one another and are influenced by one another, you find that there is let's get those two off. Those aren't the only options now. Now there's everything else that was actually bookended by this extreme of getting fast food you don't necessarily want to be eating, and this extreme of I'm only eating the absolute most perfect, clean, most rigid and vigilant diet. If I cut off those two black and white extremes, there's full spectrum in between. There's so much more available to you. There are so many more options available to you than when you are operating in extreme. So I want to ask, are you afraid of options? Are you afraid of making a choice? Are you afraid of having different choices available to you? And if you are, build your capacity for that. Build your capacity for being with the richness of existing outside of extremes. If the option is starvation or gluttony, and you cut those off, what exists in between? All kinds of options that you get to then pick instead of going, well, I only have the energy for this, or I only have the energy for this. And you go back and forth from extreme to extreme. If you cut off the extremes, they're not an option anymore. You cut off the extremes, what's left? Everything. Everything is left. Because the extremes only represented the middle in its most intense, potent form. But we don't need to be exposed to potency constantly, right? It's the same idea that if I could, do my best all the time, it wouldn't be my best, it would be my baseline. This is the same all or nothing black and white thinking that when you flip on the lights and you actually look around at what you're seeing, it's a lot harder to deny the reality that things are made of color. Yeah. Things are made of nuance.
We've been doing I've been reintroduced to sports and things like that. It's been a large part of my life. Brittany's been reintroduced in a new way to sports and things. We've been very active playing pickleball. Coaching and things like that, and it's we talk a lot about at a certain area that we play at, it's kind of like open play. It's a lot of mixed people, mixed ages and abilities. Thank you. So, but we say a lot for some people out there, it's their game time, and the same thing in life. It's I can't always be on it's game time.
It can't always be game time. It's too much pressure.
Yeah, you gotta chill out sometimes in your life, and you have to. I feel like what you're talking about is choosing when to give that effort. Because like you said,
Yeah.
if I'm giving maximum effort all the time, that's not maximum effort. That's just my baseline.
Yeah. And we were talking about this morning with pickleball. Like we were talking about, because we have pickleball sesh after the Hive today. And we were talking about like meeting up with his brother and our sister-in-law to play. And he was like, I'm just like, this is casual. Okay. There are some things in life that I have to be like rigidly on time for. It's got to happen at this time, the end, point blank. And there are other things that I just need, like, I need more space with, basically. I need to not feel bound by time, bound by something that's not even fucking real.
Yeah, it's like,
right?
hey,
Like,
we'll be there at 12. It's like between 12 and 12:15.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna be later than that.
And this is coming from someone who like grew up with, if you're on time, you're late.
Yeah, if you're on time, you're late.
If you're early, you're on time. And so that kind of all or nothing word spell is really like what it comes down to. Like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Then it's like
understanding the nuance of everything in life. It's like some things need punctuality and some things don't.
And you don't have to exist in the extremes of everything is punctual or I'm just not going to be punctual for anything. So, and I said the other day, I was like, wow, I really love leaving with like plenty of time. And then this morning I was like thinking about it and I was like, you know how like when you got to wake up or you got to be out of the house at like 9 and you're like, what's the latest possible time I could wake up in order to do that? And he's like,
no.
Could not relate less.
No.
Could not relate less. And I'm like, oh, so that's just me.
Do I understand the concept you're talking about? Sure.
Yes. Have I experienced it?
Would I ever think to do that or would I ever experience it? Have I? No.
But we were talking about that and I was like, you know, I really enjoy leaving with like plenty of time. And I think for us as self-employed people, I think for us, one of the biggest changes came this week when I was like, how about there's no plans first thing in the morning. We have a couple of things that we have to leave the house for early throughout the week. And other than those, it's like, okay, we're not rushing out of the house. We're not going anywhere. We don't have to go get coffee. Now we're having coffee at home. We don't have to go anywhere to do anything. So let's just take our time. And that I think has been the most relieving and honestly the most orienting shift, because then it's like everything just gets more consistent because you're not feeling forced and rushed. You're not operating in that extreme of, no, I need to be out of the house at 7:30. You know, I've got to be doing X, Y, and Z thing. I've got to.
Yeah.
We're doing all of the things we want to do without it being like, do all of the things you want to do. We're being a little more relaxed with it. And operating out of those extremes, like I said, is being able to like name things, you know, operating in extremes. Like we put language to it this weekend. It was like, that's a really childish and immature way, an arrested way for us to be showing up, is the way that we're showing up right now. So what can we do differently to genuinely show up for ourselves, like the adults that we are? You know, like how can we find ways to free ourselves from the idea of showing up in a day-to-day life the way that we always knew how to show up in a day-to-day life? Run your schedule, wake up, do things before you've had enough time to even adjust being conscious, do stuff, accomplish, be productive, be as productive as possible, sleep when you're dead, and do it all again the next day. And doing the opposite of that, we keep pulling the like, do the opposite from Postcards from the Liminal Space, try the opposite, and trying the opposite where we're just giving ourselves time. More time than I thought. More time than just enough time. It's extra time. So I want to talk for a quick moment about the shift for Pluto into Aquarius. We did talk for a moment about Uranus going direct, but Pluto now moved into Aquarius. So congratulations. If you are a Capricorn rising, please mark yourself safe from this Pluto transit. Capricorn moon, Capricorn sun. If you were a millennial, if you have a Capricorn Uranus, if you have a Capricorn Neptune, please mark yourself safe from this transit. Safe would be a stretch, I think, at certain points in that journey. I would say Capricorn North Node, but if you're Capricorn North Node, you probably also have those others. So it's been a wild ride the last 15 or so years. It's a pretty massive shift in my first house of public facing identity, his first house of public facing identity into second house of foundation and security and finances. And Pluto was like, you know what? I liked it so much. Let's keep it coming and head to the next house. So it will now be hitting, if you are Saturn in Aquarius and you were like, wow, I'm so glad that I finished my Saturn return and life's going to be rosy. We are now entering our Pluto in Aquarius era. If you are a Saturn in Aquarius retrograde, we will get out of this quickly. Don't you worry. We have a very early degree retrograde on our chart, and honestly, Pluto's pretty generational. So if anything, I would expect and anticipate a personal boost. Pluto has been pretty kind to the Cold War generation. I would say in the later in our later experiences, I think there is some softening that we've all experienced in the last few years, especially since the plague times. And this softening has led, I would say, more people around our age onto a path of total self-authority to whatever extent possible. And it's time now to transform the ways that we approach community. Aquarius represents community, and Pluto coming in and saying, the way that you experience technology, the way that you experience community, the way that you experience culture is never, ever going to be the same. So, you know, all of those memes that are like, oh, blah, 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 insert whatever ruined my childhood. It's like Pluto stays disrupting our childhood. First, they canceled Pluto. Now we're moving into Pluto and Aquarius. But seriously, I would say that for those of us with Saturn in Aquarius, if you are an Aquarius sun, moon, rising, good luck, Godspeed. I think we are going somewhere that is completely different. We've seen in our lifetime, we have seen technology grow at a rate that is incomprehensible to previous generations. And because of that, we have experienced more culture shifts. Think about experiencing things like the Renaissance. You experience the Renaissance, and that goes on for an extended period of time. But our Renaissance, it's like the freaking disco era. You know, these time periods are getting shorter and shorter because we're developing faster and faster. And if your capacity for change and evolution and relating to people in a new way, relating to community and connection in a new way, if it has not, if you are unwilling to make changes there, you're going to continue to feel distant. But if you are willing to plug in, to reach in, to find common freaking ground with people, honestly, is like what it comes down to. Like, we have to find common ground with people. There's something that I have been kind of like sitting on for a little bit, but there's this feeling of like, we want everyone to have the same exact intent as us. We want everyone to have the same exact why as us. And unfortunately, we don't need that as much as we thought we did. We don't need other people to see things the exact same way we do, to have the exact same heart that we do, to have the exact same intent as we do, in order to say, hey, you want the same thing as me. You want the same things as me. You value the same things as me. You're trying to get the same things as me. That is how we're going to find connection and community. I think that, you know, ongoingly, we tend to look at younger generations as like, oh, the kids are going to save us. The kids are going to save us. But I think more than anything, especially people born in that micro bubble between 90 and 93, I think that more than anything, we understand that we can't leave it to the kids to do it. And we might be tired, but we've got to take care of these things. We've got to take care of our hope. We've got to keep our hope durable. The things that make hope durable are connections to other people. There's literally nothing in this life more important or more meaningful than connection to other people. And Aquarius, more than any other sign, forgets that it is a masculine sign that is geared for connection, because connection allows us safety to be in uncertainty. You are not alone in this uncertain place. That's a card we drew this morning. Uncertainty is the reason for structure, is the reason for our masculine energy. Our masculine energy, the structure we have in our lives, the things that we pour ourselves into, and the people we connect to support us through uncertainty. And what is more uncertain than growth? What is more uncertain than waking up every single day to have a new day? We have to connect to people who support us in growing the way that we grow, the way that we want to grow. I think that oftentimes we look for support in all of the same old wrong places. So if I want to grow like this, there we go. If I want to grow like this, and you come in and you say, yeah, I'll support you. Okay. I would really love if you would do this differently though. So I'll support you, but I'm going to continue giving you my input on things that I think you should do differently. So I want to grow like this, and your support comes in like this and says, okay, yeah, I'll support you, but if you grow like that. Okay. If you are supporting me, but secretly praying that I make a different choice, you're not supporting me. You're supporting me. You're sticking yourself in at an angle and hoping that I grow the direction you want to grow. Okay. If you are supporting me, if you are receiving support, but the person who's giving you this support says it's on the condition that you do blah, blah, blah. It's on the condition that you be this way. It's on the condition that you make a decision that I would make. You are not gaining authentic connection. I think it's Teal Swan. I know that's a little controversial to reference, but I think it's Teal Swan that said, what would someone who loves you do? And that has been, I mentioned earlier, the work by Byron Katie. Is it true? Is it absolutely true? How do you feel when you believe that's true? I think it's how do you behave? I can't remember the last one. How do you respond when you believe it's true? That, and this idea that if I'm going to make a decision, like someone who loves me makes a decision, I'm going to spoil the fuck out of myself with whatever that choice is, right? I'm not going to go, well, you know, how would my mom love me? You know, I always really wanted her to be nurturing, but she kind of withheld. So I think I'm going to talk to myself in my coach voice, and maybe that will help. If that was going to work, it would have worked by now. If that was going to work, it would have worked by now. So instead, I'm like, well, shit, I can imagine anything. This is like a Aladdin genie situation. If I'm going to answer the question, what would someone who loves me do, and make my decision like that, I'm going all in. I'm going to give myself absolutely everything I want. If what I'm really, really wanting is someone to be nurturing, then I'm going to be nurturing and soft with myself, or I'm going to connect to people who are nurturing and soft with me. Being able to show up for myself and say, what would someone who loves me do? And realizing the answer was just stop putting up all of these walls between me and other people, between me and connecting to other people, overcomplicating things, resisting connection. Where we are headed, this Pluto in Aquarius, Pluto is cold. It's the furthest, most distant planet that we have. And Aquarius is these sudden changes, the water bearer, the structure, right? If water is uncertainty, the water bearer, Aquarius, says, here is how to be in uncertainty. Let me show you. It is being the vessel for yourself and filling it only with what you want. And you have so much more control over filling it with what you want than you think. And it is starting every day with, what do I want to do? How do I want to feel? How am I moving through my day? We've been doing the Huberman protocol, the 5-minute Huberman protocol for writing in the morning. It's 5 gratitudes. What are your plans for the day? Any fears or resentments?
Things to watch.
Things to watch out for, and things to strive for. And challenging myself to answer those questions in 5 minutes or less has been an exercise all in itself. But I think that doing something as simple as that has given me a sturdy ground to pay, like the Joe Dispenza meditation, if things to watch out for. I'm writing down particular phrases that I say to myself. Things to strive for. That's the memory of a distant future or a near future, like that you're trying to embody, you know. Being able to bring all of these parts together. And again, if I don't have myself in any kind of regulated state, I don't have the capacity to show up or follow through. So it all starts with our nervous system. And honestly, like rest, that was one of the hardest, or one of the most challenging parts of this week, was like, we both felt like we were not getting very good sleep leading up to the full moon. It was like a week of just like not sleeping well. And I talked to all of my clients, and all of my clients said similar things, that they weren't sleeping well. They were barely getting any sleep. They're having all kinds of like chaotic and hectic dreams and things like that. And noting just how strongly we were affected by negative sleep for just a few days, and then thinking about like him working at the fire station for so long and getting that like challenged sleep, like broken up sleep, all of that stuff. And it's like, well, no wonder, like I can offer myself some grace. He can offer hopefully himself some grace, and I can offer him some grace, when it's like, okay, yeah, like he's very sensitive to these sleep disruptions, and then was very disrupted in his sleep for a long period of time. Like your nervous system takes time to process. It's really only been like 6 months now since he left the fire station. And
I still wake up at like the times that I would wake up to go to work and things like that, like regularly scheduled like things. So like my body is still,
it's still adjusting to
like a different, a different clock and different circadian rhythm, and it's like,
so tending to, I think I like to say, controlling your controllables, and understanding that if you want to have friction available to meet something specific, and I would say choosing one thing specifically new that you're showing up for. Like we have the whiteboards back there. There's a whole freaking list of priorities. Last night I was like putting my hand over the list like this, and I was like, I think just number 1, leaving the house later in the morning. Let's deal with that. And then the rest of the stuff I'll probably have energy to be able to do without going, I'm actively striving for this. Like for someone who has spent a good period of their time in life going, like, my value is derived from doing and acts of service. If you're fucking acts of service, please raise your hand. Like that.
All right, I was trolling.
That is, in my opinion, especially if you're sitting at a moment going, well, I can't believe people are taking from me. You are not a giver. You're just afraid to take. You're not a giver. You're just afraid to take. And so being able to really understand that for myself is like, I can find my giver if I'm plenty satiated. I can give and be of true service, because now I'm not doing it to get something from someone else that I'm not giving myself. Like being able to give and be of service to people is one of the most important things to me, but not because it's like, oh, I'm going to be of service to someone and I'm getting emotional gratification for that. It's because I know I can be of good service, but I cannot be of good service if I am emotionally in the negative, right? Emotionally, like I don't have enough for myself. And so being able to be of service to others means making sure I'm just tending to that one priority, and that one priority helps me show up better across the board.
Yeah, it's like I think about, like, we talk about we're talking about more sports stuff, right? Like
Mhm.
think about like if somebody practiced one basic skill over and over and over and over and over, they never practice anything else,
Mhm.
right? Just that one thing.
Mhm.
They're like the master at that. Like,
Yeah.
you know, because that one basic, that's the one thing that they focus on
Yeah.
every single time. And then, like you said, the rest of the things in life tend to fall in suit.
Yeah.
You know?
And as with most things, like this is when you're learning to like prioritize something and give your new energy to something, I'm going to go ahead and say it's more likely than not that even the act of doing that for yourself, even if what you're doing isn't a skill that you need to learn, the act of doing it is a skill that you need to learn. And it's a compoundable skill, as all habits are. So if it's a compoundable skill, start now and figure out how to improve along the way, right? Like our number one priority is leaving the house later in the morning. That doesn't mean that we go, okay, now we leave the house at 10. If it's like we've been leaving the house at like 7:30 full tilt, like ready to go, it's like, okay, we're just focused on leaving the house later. If that means today we leave at 8 and tomorrow we leave at 8:30, and next week we might leave the house by 7:30 again, and then, you know, and continuing to allow ourselves to gain momentum in the habit without expecting it to be done perfectly. I think Ryan's done a really good job of this. He's coaching me in pickleball, and he has like, it's like I'm learning how to serve. So right now I can't also be learning how to serve and like be dead focused on I've got to drop the ball in an exact spot. Right now I'm just getting like the mechanics of it going and like getting the ball over. So he doesn't
for
disrupt.
somebody to expand on that, like
Uh,
you don't come from like a sports background, so I can't like expect you to be able to do three things at once.
Right, because I'm learning how to do one thing.
You gotta
so
do
like,
one thing and do it well.
when we're doing it, he doesn't disrupt what I'm doing in order to go, oh no, that went out. Like, we've got to reset. We've got to do this. We've got to do this. It's like, no, like we're focused on you learning this skill right now and being able to understand where giving yourself too many things to do is actually your secret way of breaking your own confidence. Because you're giving yourself too many things to do. You're striving too fucking hard, and it actually takes away your ability to be confident in the thing that you're doing. And the number one way that you're going to throw yourself off the path, subconsciously or consciously, is going to be breaking your own confidence, right? Like, imagine if I'm up at like the line and he's just smashing balls on my head all the time. Like, that would be breaking my confidence. You're not coaching someone well in a way that encourages the skill to compound if you're breaking their confidence. We have to do the same thing with ourselves. Oh, I need to sneeze. Oh. If you are giving yourself too many things to do, there's a potential that you might be subconsciously trying to break your confidence, because having too many things to do leads to you not doing it, knowing you won't do it, feeling really guilty about not doing it. And now the next time you do it, you get to use that guilt as fuel. And so
I started thinking about like some things too that like I either like know I'm not gonna do, or that don't need that priority, but I still like put it on my like mental to-do list of like things that need to do, and like then it gets insurmountable. But again, like if I actually look at it with like normal eyes, and it's like, oh, okay, that thing doesn't need any bit of priority. It can just get done whenever. Or this thing actually can get done in 2 weeks. But I keep putting it on that, and I'm just like looking at this thing, just like psyching myself out for no reason. Like,
this is going to be like a sidebar, sorry, but having a section on our Notion where we put tasks that can be done whenever, and then it's like, oh, hey, I have like 15 extra minutes between switching tasks. I'm done working on this Canva, but I'm not going to like invest myself in another thing. And then we can knock out like the nonsense tasks, because it's like sometimes you have a little more energy to give those tasks that it's like, yeah, like if I put them all down on the list right now, like to do today, that would be overwhelming. But if it's hey, just like if you have extra time, like pick a couple, that again makes it easier to accomplish, rather than you said like overwhelming yourself with like a long ass to-do list. That's like,
even if it's like something I like want to do, it's like enjoyable. Like for example, like for the past couple of days, like I've been wanting to put up, we got a new portable net for pickleball. And I've been wanting to like take it out and put it up and just look at it, you know, mess with it a little bit. But it's like, that's just a normal thing, right? But in like my not normal brain, it's like, we've got to put up the net. Oh my God, we haven't put up the net in 3 days. We're failing. Oh no. And it's like, that has no priority. That's a fun thing to do. That's something you want to do. And again, it has no bit of priority other than like you just want to do it. But again, it's like you've been thinking about it for 3 days until in your brain, you're like, you haven't done it.
There's a particular type of noodle brains that is authority resistant. And like, I know I've said before, like I've said the joke, like I rebel against authority, even my own, but like that is an actual experience that people have, is even if I want to do it, it is a demand. And I am actually averse to people placing demands on me.
I'm like, I would rather stand here in the middle of this room all day and do nothing than do what you want me to do.
But like, it's what you want to do.
Exactly.
It's what you want to do. So it's like, why am I not letting myself do what I want to do?
But for me, it's even more like, why do I put up that block to be like, this is a thing that like has to be done? It's like, it's just a thing like to do, you know? And it's like, don't put it on that to-do list of like things to do. That's not a thing to do.
Yeah, it's something fun.
That's something to enjoy. But like, again, like there are things that need to go on a to-do list. And like you said, there are things that just like go on the list. It's like, oh, these can be done whenever. And it's like, okay, that's good to know, because when you have, like you said, a specific type of brain and you're like, this is like the master list and you've got to do all these things. And you're like, I haven't done so many of these things for so many days.
And then you're like, I could not possibly do any of the things. Therefore, I'm doing none of the things now. And like, then you like, and then I would say, at least like I can speak for myself, then you start like berating yourself. And it's like, why aren't you?
I was like, to keep going the net thing, like you said, I'm getting berating myself like, I must not care that much. Why do we even buy that thing, right? I haven't put it up in 3 days. I don't even care about pickleball. Like, and it's like, Brian, you've had it. There's been a death. It's fucking cold outside. It's like,
and like being able to understand that you had the intuitive urge to put something up and you didn't do it. So now your body's running the program that says there must be a good reason why. And it's maybe not an effective program, but it is the program. So you should be then able to recognize yourself when I'm in self-berating, when I'm in that space going, I can't believe it's been this many days, changing that to, I can't believe it's this many days since I listened to my intuition, and see if that like shifts the way that you participate in it. Because like it's the smallest shift. And it's like, you would never say, oh, I guess I don't really care about my intuition, right? Because it's not about doing the task. But when you let yourself believe it's about the task, then it becomes, this must mean something. Let me extrapolate out all of the meaning from this and squeeze the juices until I feel sour as possible.
I think I'm like thinking about this story now, like that we're talking about like giving things meaning. I remember it's like, it's a bunch of like seemingly uncorrelating things, but I'm sitting there with my mom. I told you the story. Sitting there with my mom, looking at this book of quarters. If anybody knows like collecting quarters in the States, like looking at a book of quarters, and I guess somehow it correlated to me that like these things won't really matter at a certain point in time. You know, to me at least, I realized I was like, oh, I'm excited about collecting these quarters, but
like I already kind of don't care. So
I think maybe like we had like just finished it or we were close to it. I'm like, I don't care. And so then I thought about Harry Potter. That's a big thing in our lives, in my life. And I asked my mom, I was like, will there come a point in time where I just like don't care about Harry Potter? I just don't like it anymore. And she was like, probably not. I mean, I can't answer that definitively for you, but probably not. If that's something you care about, then you'll probably continue to care about it in some way your whole life. And I was like, huh, okay. And I think I realized in that moment, like you're saying, like you have to choose. You get to choose. Like
And in that moment
Yeah.
too, like I can recognize you being uncertain and going to someone and saying, give me the ability to like have structure with this, right? Because the answer of you'll probably care about it in different ways throughout your life helps you know that these things are able to be molded and shaped and changed, and they don't have to be static. They don't have to be something that like, it's to go back to like what we were talking about before, it's not this like black and white thing. So this feels a little more like we're not doing a reading today. I really feel like the things that we talked about,
like a quick numerology and a little
astrology check-in and
astrology check-in and chat.
Yeah, that feels right. That's the clickbait title. That'll definitely drive the SEO.
Find that long time.
That'll drive the SEO. No, this has been definitely what I needed after a very emotionally intense couple of weeks. And
catch everybody on the replay.
And yeah, so thank you so much for listening.
Yeah.
See you next week.